What's your name?
David Keller.
And what do you do?
I'm the managing director of the Camp Douglas Restoration Foundation.
Very good. Please
and we're
tell
sort of
us
sponsoring this archaeological dig here.
Thank you. We're so interested in finding out.
Great. Well, this is a model of the camp, and you can see superimposed on the top is about 1950. And this is the school you see here, the John J. Pershing Magnet School.
This is located at
30, well, we're just about at 33rd and Calumet.
33rd and Calumet. And what was this land at one time?
Well, this was Camp Douglas, a Civil War prison camp and training camp for Union soldiers.
Oh, I see.
And we are standing in what was where the prisoners were held. We're about right in here in this picture. And the little boxes you see on the map, on the model, are prisoner barracks. This is where the prisoners lived during their stay here and during the Civil War. We had prisoners here from February 1862 until about July 1865.
I heard there were quite a few prisoners.
There were about 30,000 prisoners here. The most at any one time was about 12,000.
You mean between 32nd and King Drive and 32nd and Calumet, there were that many prisoners?
Well, yeah, in this area between King Drive and Giles Avenue, there were 12,000 prisoners held here, which was the most held at any one time. It was 30,000 over the life of the prison, but the most held at one time was 12,000.
Wow.
And it also trained over 40,000 Union soldiers, and was one of 8 facilities in the United States to receive and train African American soldiers. So was the largest military installation in the state of Illinois during the Civil War.
Wow.
But a lot of people don't realize what it was.
And you said there were 8 facilities, 8 that trained African Americans
in the United States.
In the United States, and this was one.
This was one of the 8.
Amazing, amazing. And so the Confederate soldiers that were captured were sent here on trains.
Many of them came from the Western Theater. Fort Donelson, Franklin, Tennessee were 2 major areas. And they came up the Illinois Central Railroad from Cairo, or they were taken by boat to St. Louis and came here on the St. Louis, Alton, Chicago Railroad. In fact, the Illinois Central had a station just outside Camp Douglas where they would let the prisoners off and march them about 400 yards to the main gate, and here they were.
I understand a number of them never made it out of here.
Well, unfortunately, there were more deaths at Camp Douglas than any other prison camp in the Union, but it was also one of the longest operating and one of the biggest.
How many people died out of it?
No one knows for sure. Estimates range from 5,000 to 7,000. My personal opinion and the research I've done would say probably somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000. There are 4,243, I think, by name buried in Oakwood Cemetery at 67th and Cottage Grove.
67th and Cottage Grove holds
Oakwood Cemetery.
Holds that number of Confederate soldiers.
It says on the monument up to 6,000. My personal opinion is slightly less. There are more Confederates buried in Chicago than anywhere north of the Mason-Dixon line. And Oakwood Cemetery happens to have the unenviable distinction of being considered the largest mass grave in the Western Hemisphere.
I understand that there was a state senator from the South as well that ran against Abraham Lincoln at one time, who is buried near here as well.
Douglas, Stephen A. Douglas. And Stephen A. Douglas, Camp Douglas was named on his behalf.
Okay.
His tomb and burial is at 35th and Lake Park, which is south and east of Camp Douglas.
And what's at 35th and Lake Park right now? There are some apartment buildings in that area.
Well, there are 2 historically significant. There's the Douglas Tomb, And directly across the street from it is an area called was called the Soldiers' Home, that was built in 1863 as a convalescent center for Union soldiers. I believe it's the only building remaining in Chicago that was built specifically for the Civil War.
Wow.
And it's owned and operated by the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church acquired it a number of years ago. It operated until the 60s as a orphanage.
Yes.
And now I think it was about 2008, they completely restored it, and it's now part of their ministry offices. But they've done a marvelous job of restoring this 1863 building that's gorgeous.
Now, I noticed that there was a sign over here.
Yeah.
And this sign, when I came up on this property, it said some things that we want to let some folks know about.
Okay.
And what is this? What are you all actually doing here?
Well, we are sponsoring an archaeological investigation on the site of Camp Douglas in conjunction with the archaeologist himself is a guy by the name of Michael Greger. You have a chance to see from DePaul University. He is in charge of the technical part. The Civil War Museum of Kenosha, Wisconsin was involved in helping us do some preliminary work here in ground penetrating radar to look at the site. The Abraham Lincoln Bicentennial Foundation was a financial sponsor, and our local sponsor is Clark Roofing of Broadview, Illinois, who are very special people, because when you do archaeological digs, you'll notice you need fences, you need wood, you need buckets, and Clark Roofing is the guy who provides it all.
I see. Tell me this. I noticed when I walked up to this property that you have a current American flag and one of the early American flags there. You know, if this was a Confederate prison, is it apropos to have the Confederate flag as well?
As a matter of fact, the flag that looks like an early American flag is actually the official flag of the Confederacy.
Really?
It is not.
I thought it was the one that we're so used to seeing.
Well, the battle flag, which is the cross.
That's a battle flag.
Was their battle flag. We would not fly that because of its connotation. We fly the official Confederate flag in honor of those 6,000 who died here. It doesn't have the same connotation, and we would not put the cross, the battle flag up, because it just represents something.
There's been some conversation about African Americans recently, and all of the talk about the display of the Confederate flag in South Carolina, in the midst of all the most recent events, of course. However, there's also another side of the coin in which we must think about something called the First Amendment and freedom of speech.
Well, yeah.
And even though we do not like some of the protests or some of the things that other groups may be doing, we as free Americans, do we have the right, or do we have the responsibility to fight for the rights of all to have freedom of speech, including the Confederates who want to fly the battle flag of the Confederacy?
Those political arguments are beyond me, but
me too.
I will say that we feel very strongly that we cannot forget the Civil War. We should not forget those Americans on both sides who died there. And you think of the Confederate soldier, and a vast majority of those young men did not have slaves, were probably not thinking of slavery. They were doing something that they were expected to do, and that's a soldierly thing.
Right.
And we want to treat them with the respect due an American soldier.
That's right. Now, let's take a look at what some of these young people are doing
Sure.
over here. What do you have them into? Oh my goodness, they're digging dirt.
Digging dirt. That's what it's all about.
Wow.
We will have a total over the time of about 50 volunteers. And average, I think we've got maybe 16 or 18 here. What they're doing there is they're digging units, and they're opening another unit on the other side. Eventually we'll have 4 of these pits open. And what you do in an archaeological dig is you are really digging a timeline of a community. So for us, it's just as important to get information about the Bronzeville community as it is Camp Douglas. So what we do is very carefully dig down in 10-centimeter tranches. It's then all that is mapped, and if you sort of pan to your left, the guy in the green shirt is Michael Gregory, who's the archaeologist here. All of this will be mapped, will be photographed. We have to get down about 100 centimeters, a little over 3 feet, and then we'll get into where Camp Douglas was, and hopefully we'll be able to find artifacts.
Tell us a little bit about the archaeology process. I see that they're digging pretty small scoops of dirt there.
They'll
sifting
dig
through this stuff. Exactly what are we seeing here on
Well,
this?
they will. Every piece of dirt that comes out of here is put in a bucket. Each bucket then goes back to the back where there are screens where they will screen it to find any kind of artifacts. So it's all screened. Any artifacts you find, and you probably can see next to the screens or over here to your right, there's a paper bag, and in the paper bag are any artifacts that are found. All of these will go to DePaul University, and students at DePaul will clean them, will catalog them, we'll do research on them to determine what they are and where they came from. So we really have a timeline of this community from today back to the 1860s.
We're going to be posting this on YouTube, but I want to ask you, I'm a producer also for CAN TV, and I'm going to ask you right here and now, can we come and do a full-fledged television show in this process?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We are here. Today's what? Today's Friday, right? We'll be here till next Monday doing excavation. We close up on Tuesday, but we're here every day between now and next Tuesday. And on Monday we are having Neighborhood Day.
What day is that? June
29th.
29th. Now tell me this. If a person wanted to volunteer, a person wanted to join in and give you a hand, how could they contact you?
They can contact me at D. Keller, Keller, at campdouglas.org.
Take a look on the bottom of the screen for more information. Do you have a telephone number that we might be able to get?
Yeah, the best way to do it is my cell phone at 312-859-1940.
Say that again, please.
312-859-1940.
Now I want you to say your name and spell it, please.
David Keller, Keller.
And how do you spell David?
D-A-V-I-D.
Thank you so much.
My
Mr.
pleasure.
Keller.
This is a really labor of love with a lot of great volunteers.
Thank you again.